Why did you choose fashion as a career? Where do you get your inspiration from? How do you sell your clothes? What is the name of your brand and how did you decide on it? Those are some of the questions I've gotten a lot in my career in the fashion industry as a designer. And I am doing this specific line of questions because I want to build up on the series I did last month about fashion business. I will click the links of that series in the description box. Today I am going to cover 7 of the 15 questions and I'm going to do another part 2 next week. I don't want to make this video very long, which is why I cut it into 2 parts. So I'm sure you're going to enjoy this. Welcome and let's start. Hey guys, welcome, and I hope you have managed to catch up with last week's episode. Last week I covered my student life, basically my student life journey, what it was like to be a fashion student in Kenya, how I learned, the hurdles I had to go over to reach where I am. So today I'm actually building up on that. So if you haven't watched that specific episode, I will put the link in the description so that you can be able to catch up with it. It's good for you to watch it first so that you can build up on what I'm going to be discussing today. So today I am going to focus on questions that designers get asked a lot, and I hope that you will find this informative and helpful. I will try and make my answers brief. You know me, I make my videos very long because I like to give you thorough answers, thoroughly researched and thought about answers. But today I want to try and be as brief as possible, and if you do have additional questions, please send them my way. I am willing to answer them. I think this is one of the few rare moments that I am willing to answer more specific questions about my fashion career and my fashion business. So welcome to the episode, and now let's begin. Why I chose to study fashion. I know this is going to sound a bit repetitive because I know I've answered some aspect of this question before. I have always been generally very artistic, and the truth is I used to draw. I think I shared some of those sketches in my life as a designer that I think I did in January or something. Basically the journey through my fashion design life anyway. Yes, so I've always been drawing, and maybe you can't tell from the camera, but I am actually 5'9" in height, and for Kenya that is relatively taller than average. And because of that, one of my biggest hurdles was getting clothes that actually fit me. So one of my biggest motivations in getting into fashion was actually just to make things that fit me. And it just happens that what I made, people liked. I was artistic enough to want to try and study fashion in school. So I didn't even think I was going to do well. But because I'm those people who are very good creatively, I can write. I've just learned how to, I learned how to edit videos, I think in 3 hours. So creatively I'm very gifted, and I can catch things very quickly, and the more effort I put on something, the better I become. So I put a lot of effort in learning design and fashion, so I have become very good at it. I can't say that I've always been good at it. I've improved with time. Just like any other skill, it's always good to nurture it, even if you're naturally gifted at it. So because of all that effort I made, and because of the feedback I was getting, and the fact that people were willing to pay me for what I was doing, it was a no-brainer to stick to fashion. My original plan was actually to get into animation. At that time there was nothing like that in Kenya when I was in college. Right now, maybe if I was younger, I would have probably ended up doing animation, because I've always loved cartoons. Since I was a kid, I loved cartoons, drawing cartoons. Probably that's what I've ended up. But fashion is also amazing, and one day I might still work with animators to do something. You never know. So I never really shut down any ideas. Even with my writing, I still do a little bit of writing. If you're not familiar with this, I actually have a newsletter that I do on LinkedIn. I just make it very simple because it's also just about seeing people really interested in receiving newsletters from me. So I like writing just basically the same content I'm doing here on YouTube, just to see how it's being received. Maybe later on I might write a book and do other things. So I've not shut down any of my other ideas, but my primary focus right now is on fashion, and I love designing and learning how to create new things, and I love using fabric as my main material as to be able to work with and to express myself. So in a nutshell, that is why fashion. My favorite part, without bias, is that I get to make whatever it is I want and wear it. For those of you who have not met me in person, especially when there is an event, I'm the type of person to stand out. I'm not the type of person to blend in. I really like flamboyance. Maybe it's also from the tribe I come from. We are known to be very flamboyant, but I love that aspect because for me it's an extension of myself. So the fact that I can have anything I want to wear and I can make it with, because it is in my head and it is in my imagination, and I can try until I do it, that is my favorite part. I think it's because, first and foremost, I am the #1 client of my brand. I am #1 client. I believe in my products. I'm always wearing my products. And it just because I wear mine doesn't mean I don't support other designers. I buy jewelry from other designers, even clothes. Depending on the clothes, maybe if it's something I don't make, I definitely support other designers as well. So I love the fact that I can also personalize my style. So even when I pick things from other people, it's always very unique. And the funny thing is, people always assume I made it, so it's still an added bonus. So for sure, that's just it. I love making things for myself, and I also love it when I make it for other people and they love it as well. So for me, that's the biggest motivator, as well as seeing people in my stuff. That also, it really warms my heart because it takes a lot, you know, especially for someone like me where my work is such an extension of myself. For someone to appreciate you and to pay for it, what you want paid, it's a big compliment. It's not something I take for granted. So yeah, that's why. So yes, I do have 3 brands. So I'll describe them briefly. Basically my whole idea behind having 3 brands, and the truth is that I still don't know if it's a good idea. I don't have everything figured out. I'm still trying to navigate through this fashion brand business, but I'm going to wait and see if eventually it will go back to being one brand or separate brands. So in 2008 is when I registered Myanmar Creations, and I officially started operating in 2013. So Myanmar Creations basically was, and still is, no, it actually was a made to measure brand, meaning that someone came to me and I made things for them, and they went, and that's how I've operated for so many years. By the time around 2017, I started getting more interested in becoming more specialized, because generally the fashion market in Kenya has really been congested by people doing the same thing. So basically the business model that I was using to run Myanmar Creations is being done by very many people, and some even cheaper than I am doing. So I decided that I need to become even more specialized, and for a while I've been interested in doing gowns, but I am not interested in doing wedding gowns, specifically white wedding gowns. I do not mind doing traditional wedding dresses for people, but specifically I also want to specialize in women's clothing because that's where my strength is. I understand women's bodies, no matter what height or size you are, I am your person. So I wanted to go more niche, and I'm the type of person who has even reached a point where I've narrowed down on the type of material I like. I like fabric that doesn't really stretch much. If it stretches, maybe just a little, but I like fabric that will hold someone and give them that form, because I think stretch fabric generally moves with your body anyway. So I started Cinched by Miamara in 2019, and I deal specifically in corsets, gowns, and very fancy dresses. So that kind of clothing is a bit more high-end and costs a bit more because it's very, very specialized. So I do African inspired clothes and corsets that where I'll get into the detail of doing beadwork and just making it way more specialized, and I require people to come for fittings. I do a sample and everything. So what I decided to do is I decided to make Miamara Creations a ready to wear line. So basically I just make things that are ready-made and then people buy. That's more for the general market. And then lastly, I have Treasure by Miamara. Treasure by Miamara was a catch-22 for me. I wasn't sure if I should do it or not. It might remain like that. I'm still not sure, as I've said. But it's specifically for my accessories line like this. And I wanted to start something where I use my leftover fabric and sell. During the pandemic, because I started it in 2021 actually. But during the pandemic, I was avoiding this thing of putting too many pandemic-like products on my Miamara page, because I was feeling like it's going to, I don't know, I just felt like it was going to mess up with the brand, because I was really, really trying to work on a brand identity. So I decided I would rather just have it as a separate page, but I did it way after the mask craze came up. But I figured I could use that page to promote a lot of these affordable accessories made from my leftover fabric, so that I can also reuse my fabric. So things like the satin bonnets, the berets, and all sorts of things. So all the links are of my Instagram pages are on the description. They are always there, so you can check it out. I am yet to update my website. My website still has my Miamara Creations work, the ready to wear line. And I guess we will see how it goes. Maybe I will do a check-in later one of these days to explain how it's going. Maybe I will do all three. Maybe I'll get rid of one. Maybe I'll remain with all of them. I do not know yet. I think it's still too early. I'm still testing the waters to see what will do well. But as I've said before, whatever I put my energies towards usually ends up doing well, because I put a lot of effort. So for me, I think I'm waiting to see where the market takes me. At this point where I've reached, I just want to be able to do something that will take off and do well, and maybe later on work on the others. So we'll wait and see how it goes. So that's why I have 3 brands. Inspiration. This is one of those questions that kind of annoys me to a degree, because I've had people answering these questions almost like there is a certain thing you're supposed to say there so that you sound smart and give this elaborate answer that people would be in awe of how you think. I'm inspired by so many things, but probably my number one inspiration has become culture as well as people. Just people, regular people. Sometimes I can meet somebody and I know exactly what I would put on them. And other times I will see something culturally that maybe someone does or something, and I'll be like, I really like that. And I'm not necessarily limiting the culture to African. It can be anything, because I actually watch all sorts of things and read all sorts of books just so that I can be able to learn about different things and just learn about people, because a lot of these things that end up being something cultural to people and it was probably a solution to a problem in a culture. Example, like with the corset, it really fascinates me. It was the way the West came up with support for women to be able to have bust support, because there were no bras. I'm thinking that it was a very complex way of solving a problem, but it really worked. And on top of it accentuating the bust, it also made people's waists smaller and gave them that shape. Of course, there are different corsets for different times, but I find such things fascinating. So when I get into learning about something that inspires me, I really go deep, because I like to know the genesis of all these things and then apply it in my own way. It doesn't even have to be the traditional way. For some of the fun things I've been doing lately is exploring pre-colonial dressing, especially in Kenya, because that's the easiest one for me to start with, because at least I know the names of the tribes in Kenya, many of them. So I have found great resources online where I can see photos of what people wore before colonization, because a lot of our tribes, we have lost our culture in terms of how we dress. We don't really dress the way people dress traditionally, but the people who still do dress traditionally, also there's a lot of change in how they dress. It's been really modernized, so I love it when I find those very, very traditional black, most of them are black and white pictures of what people used to wear before colonization and before a lot of the culture was erased. So that's my primary source of inspiration. Yeah. The skill I would say that it's most important as a designer, even if you don't do this in your own business, is to know how to sew. I think sometimes sewing is really, really underestimated, and sometimes, depending, I guess, on which country you're in, sometimes sketching and drawing is elevated above sewing. And the truth is, if you can draw and sketch a fantastic garment and nobody knows how to put it together, then there is really, really no point, unless maybe your sketch is just for artistic expression. But I think one of the most important skills to know how to do is to sew. And sketching is actually an added bonus. I would not put it above sewing. The reason why I insist on sewing is because you learn how to manipulate the material according to what you want it to do. And you can't rely on a tailor to come up with, to understand what you are trying to express. And sometimes knowing how a fabric moves and feels will help you know how even to design or to change the design if you have to edit. Or even the best material to use for that specific design. There are very few people who can be able to design and come up with the idea without knowing how to sew and have that done. So those are very few, and I think you have to just have a lot of money to hire the right seamstress to be able to do that for you, to be able to put it together for you. So I never underestimate sewing. I never expect that a tailor should know how to sew some things better than me. Even if they do know, maybe that's an added bonus, but I always try to try and keep my skill level for sewing very high. So this is just my opinion. Some people probably have a different opinion. Of course, the other skills that you really need to know are business management and keeping business records and all those. And of course, if you're doing this for running a business, then of course those are the other skills you really need to know, and you can't really put them down. But sewing for design purposes, whether it's for a hobby, whether you're a cosplayer or whatever it is you do, sewing is paramount. Qualification wise, I would just say be talented. I know it sounds strange, because I know there are people who will definitely insist that you have to have studied fashion. I'm one of those people who insist you should study fashion, and my reason is mostly because of the certain things that you will learn in school that you might not necessarily pick up if you didn't go through the school process. And there are things that they teach you, even if you are not interested in it generally, at least you never know how it will play out later on. Example, quilting. Most of the time, traditionally, quilting was known for duvets and beddings and stuff like that. But now you see people are doing all sorts of quilting on jackets, and making all these big bomber jackets and all kind of things, puff jackets with quilting. So you can't really underestimate some of those skills, even the hand sewing skills, hand embroidery. A lot of those things I learned them in school, that if I hadn't gone to school to learn some of those teachers, they taught us all types of embroidery stitches and all that. And sometimes picking up things like tacks and embroidery and things like that, pleats, different types of pleats and all that, you don't know when they might be very helpful when you are learning, when you're running your business, because it can create all sorts of inspiration for you. So I would definitely advocate for going to school, but it is not compulsory. I think if you really have a brand identity that you really understand and you know exactly what you want to do, then go for it. Because there are very many people who get into the fashion business and they're not necessarily designers, but they invest in the fashion business. So I think it's important to just learn the basics of fashion. I would advise that you do the full fashion course and not a short course, because I feel like a short course can shortchange you on some content that you'd learn in a full course where you'd learn way more. So it really just depends on you, the kind of person you are, what you want to learn, what you want to do, what kind of business you want to operate. But if you want to be a designer, I would definitely advise you to go to school, whether you want to go before you start your brand or after you start your brand. It's really up to you. So qualification wise, it's really up to you as well. There are people who do look down on people who have not studied fashion. I think it's unnecessary, because fashion is so skill based. You will not look down on a carpenter who knows how to make awesome furniture because they did not go to carpentry school. So it should be the same with fashion. So that's my stance on it. It's beneficial, it is not compulsory. How I stay up to date, I think I covered that a lot in the episode I did in digital resources last month. So check it out. Basically, I subscribe, in a nutshell, I subscribe to a lot of newsletters. I follow a lot of YouTube channels. There was a time my primary source was magazines. Right now it's very difficult to get magazines that actually have fashion content. There's so many online resources where you can get fashion content. You don't even need magazines anymore. So I follow people I like. I follow designers' social media pages. So basically the internet is probably my primary source of keeping up to date. And to know specifically which ones, I think I covered it very well in the other videos. In the other video I did last month, the digital resources video. I think I'll link it as well in the description, just so that you know which one it is I'm talking about. So click there, I'm sure you'll see it. Yeah. And that's it for part 1. So next week we'll do part 2. I hope you found the questions interesting. I find them interesting. I do not really research before this. Okay, the only thing I researched was the questions. I didn't really look at them because I researched them a while ago. So it's very good to also just think on my feet. In case you have additional questions to what I've already shared, you want me to build up on it, please feel free to leave questions in the comment section. As I say, I'm still a small enough channel to respond to all of them, so I will respond to them. So please leave your comments, please like this video. It really helps YouTube recommend it to other people. Share this video if you found this information helpful. Subscribe, please subscribe. I appreciate all the subscribers I have right now, and I'm hoping and praying for more and more. And I guess I will see you next week. Bye.